Introduction. Whether you're someone who keeps up to date with the latest health and fitness trends, or you're only now starting to look for ways to live a longer, healthier life, you've probably heard about intermittent fasting before. It is currently one of the most popular trends, and for good reason. Not only will you lose weight following an intermittent fasting program, you'll also improve your health and add years to your life. Not to mention how intermittent fasting will simplify your life. Gone are the days of spending hours in the kitchen preparing 3, 4, or more meals a day. Although fasting has been practiced for ages, it's only recently that scientists discovered the remarkable effects intermittent fasting has on your brain and body. It can reduce oxidative damage and inflammation and protect cells in general. Intermittent fasting is so powerful that it can reverse type 2 diabetes. This is excellent news considering that 10.5% of the U.S. population have been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, and a further 21.4% of people with the disease are yet to be identified. When it comes to prediabetes, 88 million people older than 18 have it. In this book, we will dive deep into the science behind intermittent fasting and the positive effects it can have on a person's body and mind. I am personal proof of the transformative power of fasting. I was one of the millions who suffered from type 2 diabetes. At my heaviest, 362 pounds, my body didn't know what to do with the insulin it produced every time I ate. Add to that the fact that my diet left much to be desired. Sugary processed foods were my go-to at every meal, and in between. My body paid the price for all my bad food decisions. Joint pain, knee pain, a constantly aching back, insomnia, lethargy, depression, the list goes on. Of course, the fact that I was over 50 meant I wasn't always sure if my aches and pains were due to getting old or my weight. I'm sure it was both. Fast forward to 12 years later, and here I am, fit as a fiddle. My blood sugar levels are healthy, my knees and joints are in tip-top shape, so much so that I partake in the occasional marathon here and there, and best of all, I am no longer classified as morbidly obese on the Body Mass Index BMI scale. I lost close to 180 pounds in the first 2 years of following an intermittent fasting lifestyle and have maintained my weight since. The physical change I went through is so remarkable. My results recruited a lot of my friends and family members to the intermittent fasting lifestyle, and they look great too. Then there's the mental improvement I want to focus on before we get to the meaty stuff and start the book. We have a history of Alzheimer's disease in our family. My siblings and I had to look on as my mother progressively started to lose her memory. She forgot that my dad had died and believed that he had left her for another woman. We had to explain to her every time we saw her that it wasn't true and that he had passed on a few years ago. It was heartbreak after heartbreak for her and us. When we noticed my sister starting to exhibit early signs of the disease, we all were frightened. We didn't want to go through something similar again. At that time, I had already started living the intermittent fasting way and knew that fasting could slow down and even prevent degenerative brain diseases. So, my sis jumped on the intermittent fasting bandwagon and her memory has improved, and other signs of Alzheimer's have decreased amazingly. There are thousands of intermittent fasting success stories out there, and they're not limited to weight loss. Throughout this book, you will discover why intermittent fasting is considered the fountain of health and youth. I hope to leave you feeling inspired and excited to start intermittent fasting. There truly is nothing else like it. I've broken this book down into 4 parts. Part 1, the whats and whys. Here, we'll dig into the science behind intermittent fasting and weight loss, the effects of intermittent fasting on the body and mind, and the 6 stages of fasting. Part 2, how to start intermittent fasting. Here, we'll take you through some of the most tried and tested methods for not only starting intermittent fasting, but sticking with it. Part 3, watch out for the gotchas. Here, we look at some of the criticisms that intermittent fasting has received over the years and dispel a lot of the myths floating around these days. And last but not least, Part 4, the meal plan. I'll take you through some of my favorite dishes and a meal plan that will definitely help you hit your goals. I think it's time to get started. The sooner you can begin your intermittent fasting journey, the quicker you'll feel like $1,000,000. Part 1. The whats and whys. What is intermittent fasting? Intermittent fasting is taking the world by storm. One of the main reasons it is so popular is that it's not about which foods you eat, but rather when you should eat. I will take you through the different intermittent fasting methods later on in this book, but for now, you'd be surprised to learn that you already fast every day when you sleep. When you decide to start intermittent fasting, you're, in essence, just prolonging that fast a little longer. Furthermore, if you're not a fan of breakfast and have been eating your first meal at lunchtime, you've been intermittent fasting without knowing it and have been following the 16-8 protocol, where you fast for 16 hours and have an eating window of 8 hours. Easy, right? Our bodies can actually go without food for anything from a few hours to several days. Before we learned to farm, we were hunters and gatherers. Considering that access to food was very sporadic, our bodies evolved not just to survive, but thrive for extended periods without eating. Think about it this way. After not eating for a day or two, they still needed the energy to hunt and gather nuts and berries, or they would eventually starve. This is proof that going without food for an extended time won't make you feel lethargic, as is the popular belief. Instead, you'll have enough energy to go about your day as if you had eaten. Also, if we look back to 50 years ago, people found it easier to maintain their weight. There were no computers, and television shows didn't run 24/7, which means people went to bed earlier and thus stopped eating earlier. Portions were also smaller, and people were more physically active. Fast forward to today, where we have uninterrupted access to various forms of entertainment, and we can stay awake for longer while watching our favorite shows, playing games, or keeping ourselves busy online. We also have the habit of snacking throughout the day and a big part of the night. This means we're eating more calories while being less active, a recipe for a health disaster. Intermittent fasting has the ability to reverse these unhealthy trends. Why fast? Have you noticed that you don't eat a lot when you're sick? That's because our bodies instinctively know that fasting is healing. Considering this, isn't it strange that most of society berates anyone who dares skip breakfast? Fasting is a natural part of being human, and our bodies are more than capable of going without food for extended periods. Think of the word breakfast. The English language recognizes that fasting should be done daily. Breakfast is usually the first meal you eat to break the fast. Of course, with intermittent fasting, when you break your fast is entirely up to you and not the time of the day. Considering this, fasting isn't some new fad thing, and there is nothing unusual about it. It is part of everyday, normal life. In fact, it is possibly the oldest and greatest dietary intervention known to man. When you don't eat for a while, your body functions differently to thrive during periods without food. Your hormones, genes, and repair processes are affected when you fast. Yet, the healing power of intermittent fasting has been overlooked, and instead, breakfast has been touted as the most important meal of the day. Some people may function better when they eat early in the morning, but that doesn't mean intermittent fasting isn't for them. Since intermittent fasting is so flexible, people who need to fuel their bodies first thing in the morning can skip dinner instead and still enjoy a hearty breakfast. That being said, intermittent fasting is not for everyone. So before we move on, let's cover who shouldn't follow this eating protocol. As with any diet or major lifestyle change, you should chat with your doctor first. They know your health history best and will be able to guide you to fast safely or advise against it. The following people should avoid intermittent fasting: children under 18 without parental consent, people who suffer from or have a history of eating disorders, women who are pregnant or breastfeeding. As with any lifestyle change, it's recommended that you speak with a professional before jumping in. especially those with diabetes. Although intermittent fasting has amazing effects on insulin levels and blood sugar, I'll dive into this later on, it can worsen low blood sugar levels, leading to dizzy spells, etc. All in all, intermittent fasting can be life-changing, but it does affect people differently. If you experience constant headaches, nausea, feel unusually anxious, or experience other odd symptoms, talk to your doctor. Now that we got that out of the way, let's look at some of the main reasons intermittent fasting may be for you. You want to lose weight. You want to live longer. You want to decrease your risk of getting certain diseases. You want to live a more convenient life. You want to save money. You now know that intermittent fasting is all about cycling when you eat and don't eat. It is not starvation, but a way to control when you fuel your body. You also know a little more about the benefits of intermittent fasting. However, I think it is important that we look at the science behind intermittent fasting and why it has the power to be so beneficial to your health. Effects of intermittent fasting on body and mind. A lot of processes take place during intermittent fasting. The majority of these positively affect your body and can protect against various diseases, including type 2 diabetes, degenerative brain diseases, heart disease, and even cancer. There's a reason why many think of a fast as a cleanse or detox. It clears your system from toxins and gives your body time to heal itself. Think of it this way. Your body has a lot to focus on during the day. Adding digesting food to its to-do list takes away the time your body could have spent on repairing damaged cells. But there's more to it than that. Here are the top benefits of intermittent fasting, in more detail and backed by scientific data. 1. Changes functioning of hormones, genes, and cells. All of the wonderful benefits listed throughout this book relate to a change in how your body releases hormones, how cells function, and how genes express themselves. One of the most notable changes is the increase of the human growth hormone, HGH, which facilitates healing, fat burning, muscle gain, and various other benefits. Other noteworthy advantages include a drop in insulin levels in the blood, which is great if you have blood sugar issues or are trying to lose weight, as stable insulin levels facilitate fat burning. When it comes to your body's ability to repair itself, intermittent fasting encourages cellular repair processes. It helps your body rid itself of any waste that may cause harm to cells. 2. Lowers your risk for type 2 diabetes. In the previous point, I mentioned that intermittent fasting regulates your body's insulin production, which is important if you're pre-diabetic or have already been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. To help your body heal, you need to reduce blood sugar levels and reverse insulin resistance. This is easily done through fasting. Studies have found that intermittent fasting leads to a remarkable drop in blood sugar levels. It can potentially reduce a person's blood sugar by between 3 to 6% in 8 to 12 weeks. One animal study done on mice with diabetes found that intermittent fasting not only increased their survival rates but also decreased their risk of getting diabetic retinopathy, a complication that can lead to blindness. That being said, women may have to keep an extra eye on their blood sugar while intermittent fasting. A 2005 study found that their blood sugar levels worsened after following an intermittent fasting protocol for 22 days. Later on, I will discuss women and intermittent fasting in more detail. 3. Reduces inflammation and oxidative stress. Oxidative stress is one of the main players when it comes to aging and chronic disease. Free radicals, unstable molecules that damage important molecules, are part and parcel of oxidative stress. Intermittent fasting may be your best bet to get rid of free radicals and combat oxidative stress. In addition to fighting free radicals, intermittent fasting can also help manage inflammation in your body. And we all know inflammation is the driving force behind many diseases. 4. Helps heal your heart. Heart disease is the leading cause of death in the world. Various health markers increase or decrease a person's risk of heart disease. Some of these unwanted markers include high blood sugar levels, high blood pressure, high blood triglycerides, high levels of LDL, bad cholesterol, elevated inflammation levels. The good news, intermittent fasting can improve these risk factors. 5. Reduces risk of cancer. This is a big one, especially when you're over 50 and the possibility of getting the big C becomes even more of a reality. Cancer can be explained as the uncontrolled growth of cells. Intermittent fasting has found to have the ability to help block tumors from forming in rats. Human studies led to similar findings. What's more, intermittent fasting can reduce the horrible side effects linked with chemotherapy. The effect fasting has on your metabolism may be able to reduce your risk of getting cancer. 6. Benefits your brain. If it's good for your body, it's usually good for your brain. I already mentioned the metabolic improvement fasting has on your body. It reduces oxidative stress, inflammation, levels out blood sugar, and combats insulin resistance, already having a positive impact on your brain. But intermittent fasting goes a step further. Intermittent fasting can help your brain grow new nerve cells. It also increases brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF, a brain hormone that guards against depression and other brain problems. In animals, intermittent fasting has been found to protect against brain damage caused by strokes. 7. Prevents degenerative brain disease. 9 out of 10 people with Alzheimer's reported a significant improvement in their symptoms after incorporating short daily fasts in their lifestyle. For those with a history of a neurodegenerative disease in their family, you'll be happy to read that intermittent fasting may delay its onset or reduce its severity. Furthermore, Parkinson's, Huntington's, and other degenerative brain diseases can also be prevented or delayed by following an intermittent fasting eating protocol. 8. Extends your lifespan. As soon as we see the first wrinkle or feel our backs hurt without much exertion, we can't help but think about our mortality. Won't it be great to live a little longer and experience less discomfort while you do? I know my search for the fountain of youth kicked in fairly early. Well, intermittent fasting is the closest thing we have to it. Personally, I think intermittent fasting's ability to extend lifespan is the most exciting function of this way of living. In 2017, researchers put mice on an alternate day fasting regime, and the results were very surprising. The mice lived around 13% longer. In a similar study, rats lived 83% longer than those who weren't fasted. Not only did it prolong the life of these animals, but it also improved their overall health. Fatty liver disease and hepatocellular carcinoma are common diseases in aging mice. Fasting delayed the onset of these conditions. What's even more interesting is that what and how much the mice ate had no bearing on these results. I know the studies mentioned are all animal-based. Still, if we consider the human studies where intermittent fasting's benefits on a person's metabolism and health markers were recorded, it only makes sense that intermittent fasting could help you live a longer and healthier life. 9. Reduces blood pressure. Healthy blood pressure is a must if you want to decrease your risk of stroke, heart disease, and kidney disease. Luckily, intermittent fasting can help you out if you suffer from high blood pressure. In one study, participants were placed on the 16-8 intermittent fasting protocol. Their systolic blood pressure decreased significantly. Intermittent fasting has been shown to lower systolic blood pressure more than any other diet that defines when you should and shouldn't eat. It is worth noting that the positive effects on blood pressure only lasted while people practiced intermittent fasting. As soon as they started to eat normally again, their blood pressure readings reverted to their initial levels. 10. Lowers cholesterol. Cholesterol has been oversimplified. Not many people know that you have good cholesterol called high-density lipoprotein, HDL, and bad cholesterol known as low-density lipoprotein, LDL. Saying you have high cholesterol means nothing if you don't quantify whether it's the good or bad type, which is important because cholesterol plays an integral role in your bodily functions and, too low a level of the good kind can cause health issues. Keeping that in mind, if your doctor tested your cholesterol and discovered that your LDL count is too high, intermittent fasting in combination with cardiovascular exercise can help. Furthermore, intermittent fasting reduces the number of triglycerides in your blood. This fat can lead to heart disease and increases your risk of having a stroke or suffering a heart attack. I think it is clear why intermittent fasting is so popular. It can help you live a longer and healthier life. Research supports this. You may have noticed that I didn't mention intermittent fasting's effect on your weight. Well, that is because intermittent fasting is such a powerful weight loss tool. It needs its very own section. Considering that obesity-related conditions are some of the leading causes of preventable and premature death, I think it is important to give intermittent fasting's weight management capabilities its moment in the spotlight. Intermittent fasting and weight loss. A lot of people will try intermittent fasting with the hopes of losing weight. The other benefits often come as a pleasant surprise. Whatever the case may be, intermittent fasting can help you lose weight, and more importantly, shake off any harmful visceral fat. But before we jump into how intermittent fasting can help you lose weight, let's first take a detour and learn how exactly weight loss works. For you to lose weight, you have to consistently consume fewer calories than what your body needs to function. On the flip side, if you consistently eat more than your body needs, you'll gain weight. Of course, if it were that simple, we'd all be our ideal weight, and obesity wouldn't be a thing. Calorie expenditure is a bit more complicated than calories in versus calories out. It is composed of three components. 1. Resting metabolic rate, RMR. The number of calories needed for your body to maintain all its normal bodily functions, including pumping blood and breathing. 2. Thermic effect of food, TEF. The calories used to break down, digest, absorb, and metabolize your food. 3. Thermic effect of activity, TEA. Calories used during exercise. However, you also get NEAT, which stands for Non-Exercise Activity Thermogenesis, and this includes activities like fidgeting or working in the garden. Furthermore, several factors affect the rate at which you're able to lose weight. Unfortunately, you don't have control over many of these. Gender. This is a big one. Men have a much easier time losing weight than women do. That's because a person's fat-to-muscle ratio influences how easily you can lose weight, and women usually have a greater fat-to-muscle ratio than men. Furthermore, if you compare a man and a woman of the same height, the woman will have a 5 to 10% lower RMR. This means that when these two sit next to each other on a couch, the woman will burn 5 to 10% fewer calories than the man. It explains why men lose weight much quicker than women, even when they consume the exact same amount of calories. One study done over an 8-week period with over 2,000 participants showed that when each participant was placed on an 800-calorie diet, the men lost a whopping 16% more weight than the woman. Age. As we get older, our fat mass increases and our muscle mass decreases. If you're a woman, you probably already did the math. You have less muscle mass than men to begin with. Add to that your age, and losing weight is looking increasingly harder. I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news. However, there is hope in intermittent fasting, as you'll discover the more you read this book. Okay, back to how age affects weight loss. Apart from decreasing muscle mass, your major organs also need fewer calories as you get older, meaning you'll have to adapt your calorie intake to compensate for this lower RMR. If you don't, you'll end up gaining weight. Your RMR goes for such a dive as you age that you can expect a 20 to 28% decrease when you reach 70. That's pretty significant, and it's not something that everyone knows. No wonder my friends complain that they keep putting on weight without eating more than they normally do. Starting point. Your starting weight can also affect how quickly you shed the pounds. A heavier person could initially lose up to twice the weight a person who weighs less may lose, but it will be the same when looking at the relative weight loss percentage. For example, Pete weighs 250 pounds and drops 10. That equals 4% weight loss. His buddy Sam weighs only 125 and lost 5 pounds. That also equals a loss of 4%. That being said, your body is more likely to let go of excess fat when there is still enough in reserve. If you're close to your ideal body weight, losing that last few pounds may prove to be a little trickier than when you were still heavier. Weight loss is a complex process, and although you can use your weight, age, sex, and how many calories you eat to predict how much you can lose, there are too many variables to get an exact answer. Caloric deficit. I already mentioned that you need to create a negative calorie balance if you want to lose weight. The size of that deficit will affect how quickly you lose weight. For example, if you eat 500 fewer calories daily for 8 weeks, you will have better results than if you ate only 200 fewer calories per day. Knowing this, you may be inclined to eat as little as possible. That is not a good idea. Not only is it not sustainable, but it can also lead to nutrient deficiencies and muscle mass loss. Believe me, weight loss isn't just weight loss. You want to lose fat mass, not your muscles. Sleep. You won't believe how important sleep is when it comes to weight loss. If you don't get enough sleep, it will hinder the speed at which you lose weight. Furthermore, studies have found that just one night of bad sleep increases your cravings for high-calorie, unhealthy foods, such as cake, cookies, chips, etc. That's the last thing you want when you're trying to cut the calories, right? In another study, participants were placed on a calorie-restricted diet and were divided into 2 groups. One group slept 5.5 hours and the other 8.5 hours each night. The group who slept the least lost 55% less body fat and 60% more lean mass than the other group. Sleep is important, period. If you have chronic sleep deprivation, you increase your chances of getting type 2 diabetes, becoming obese, suffering from heart disease, and even getting certain cancers. Other factors. Here's a list of other things that can influence your weight loss rate. Medication, antidepressants, antipsychotics, and many other medications can hinder or promote weight gain. Medical conditions, depression, and hypothyroidism are only 2 examples of illness that can slow weight loss or even encourage weight gain. Genes. There is a genetic component to being overweight or obese. This can affect your attempts to lose weight. Yo-yo dieting. Losing weight only to gain it back again decreases your RMR, which will make it difficult to lose weight. I know you may be hoping to fit into that pair of pants tomorrow that you bought 6 months ago, but you mustn't go too fast. Yes, the weight loss results are noteworthy when you first start intermittent fasting, but your aim shouldn't be to lose weight as fast as you can. Instead, focus on doing it healthily by following the tips in this book. Losing weight too rapidly can have negative consequences on your health. For example, it increases your risk of malnutrition, dehydration, menstrual irregularities, and gallstones. Other side effects of losing weight too quickly include fatigue, irritability, headaches, constipation, hair loss, muscle loss. It is recommended that you don't lose more than 3 pounds or 1% of your body weight per week. Of course, weight loss isn't linear, and some weeks you'll only lose 1 pound, and that is okay. Don't feel discouraged when you get on the scale and the number is the same for a few days in a row. In fact, I suggest you ditch the scale altogether and start measuring key areas of your body instead. Since a person's weight can fluctuate for so many reasons, why set yourself up to feel like a failure on the days when you haven't lost or you've even gained? If you measure yourself, you'll be able to see that you're still smaller than you were before, even if the scale says something different. So, now you know the ins and outs of weight loss. I think it is time we get back to how intermittent fasting specifically can help you lose those unwanted pounds. Okay, so if losing weight is all about managing calories in versus calories out, you'll automatically be consuming fewer calories when you fast unless you make an effort to eat X amount of calories to maintain your weight. In addition to cutting your calorie intake, intermittent fasting also enhances hormone function that enables weight loss. I previously mentioned that intermittent fasting lowers your insulin levels and increases human growth hormone levels. These factors facilitate weight loss. Intermittent fasting also increases norepinephrine, noradrenaline, which helps your body break down fat for fuel and, in doing so, increases your metabolic rate. In other words, not only does intermittent fasting increase how many calories you burn throughout the day, but it also limits how many calories you eat to begin with. One study found that intermittent fasting can lead to body fat loss of between 3 to 8% in anything from 3 to 24 weeks. That is a massive amount of weight loss. Furthermore, participants lost between 4 to 7% of their waist circumference. A skinnier waist indicates less visceral fat, and that is good news considering that visceral fat actively increases a person's risk of serious health problems. Intermittent fasting's ability to help you manage how you eat already makes it a powerful weight loss tool. However, there's more to it. A caloric surplus doesn't just cause obesity. The cause can be hormonal, too, especially for women. Nothing in your body happens by accident. Hormones orchestrate every process, including whether the food you eat gets burned for fuel or converted to fat and stored on your thighs. One of the main hormones when it comes to weight management is insulin, a fat-storing hormone. But that doesn't mean insulin is bad right off the bat. It has an important role to play in your body and works as follows. When you eat, your body can't use all the energy immediately and must store some of it for later use. Insulin is the hormone that drives the storage of food energy. When you eat, the insulin in your body rises, and it signals your body to store some of the food as body fat. There are two ways the body can store this excess energy. Firstly, carbohydrates get broken down into glucose, which links into long chains to form glycogen. The glycogen is then stored in the liver and muscle. The storage space for carbs is limited, and once reached, the liver turns the leftover glucose into fat. Your liver will hold on to some of this fat, but most of it will be stored elsewhere in the body. Unfortunately, there is no limit to how much fat can be created, meaning your body has two food energy storage systems: glycogen, which is easily accessible but has limited space, and body fat, which takes longer to access but has unlimited storage space. When you don't eat, the process goes into reverse, and insulin drops, signaling your body to burn its fat stores. Since glycogen is the most easily accessible, your body will start there. It usually takes between 24 and 36 hours for your glycogen stores to be depleted. When this happens, your body will turn to body fat as an energy source. We need insulin and other hormones to regulate our body fat. It's not something we can consciously control. Don't get me wrong, how much and what you eat does play a vital role, but only because it triggers the hormones that run everything in the background. For example, when we're hungry, the hormone ghrelin will make our tummies growl as a signal that we should eat. When we're full, peptide YY and cholecystokinin tell us we're full. Okay, back to insulin. When you're overweight, you can have as much as 20% more insulin in your body than those at a healthy weight. Such high levels of insulin correlate to waist circumference and waist to hip ratio. In other words, high insulin causes obesity. During a diabetic study in 1993, type 1 diabetics were divided into two sections and given differing amounts of insulin to measure blood glucose control. The first group, considered the sample group, was given a standard insulin dose, while the second group received a much higher dose. While the study did show a correlation between the amount of insulin present in the body and glucose control, it also showed a correlation between insulin levels and weight gain. Before taking part in the study, the patients were more or less equal in weight, with little obesity. After completion of the study, 30% of the patients had gained major weight, with participants in the high-dose group gaining, on average, 9.8 pounds more than the standard group. Now that you know being overweight is a hormonal imbalance, the focus can shift somewhat from reducing calories to lowering insulin levels. In other words, focusing on what and when you eat. Most traditional diets only focus on changing what you eat, but since it doesn't address the whole problem, they often fail in the long term. Low carb, low fat, vegetarian, vegan, does it even matter? Sure it does, but how much does it really matter? According to the most popular fads in the weight loss industry, carbohydrates are the biggest culprit when it comes to weight gain. But is that true? Many societies eat carbohydrate-based diets, yet they're not finding themselves amid an obesity epidemic like in the U.S. Cultures such as Irish, Asian, and French enjoy their fair share of carbs, but they have virtually no obesity. So what is their secret? They don't eat all the time. When you sleep, you don't eat. And this gives your body time to digest food, break down and process the nutrients, and burn what is left for energy to power your organs and muscles. When you eat, your body stores the food as glucose and body fat, and it is then used later when needed. This is a balancing act, and if you can maintain equilibrium between your feeding and fasting, you'll be able to sustain a stable weight. In a nutshell, the single best thing you can do to lose weight is not to eat all the time. Easier said than done, I know, especially considering that nutritional authorities will tell you to do the exact opposite. Don't ever skip breakfast. It is the most important meal of the day. Eat 6 times a day. Don't forget to snack throughout the day. Eat before you go to bed. The most common advice is to eat, even when you're trying to lose weight. That's backward thinking, if you ask me. Why not use intermittent fasting as a way to help your body use stored fat as energy? That is why body fat is there to begin with, after all. It's food energy that has been stored. In that case, if you don't eat, your body will have no option but to eat its own fat for fuel. Our bodies only really exist in 2 states, fed and fasted. We're either increasing our food energy stores by eating or decreasing them by burning stored energy. If you can balance the 2, there shouldn't be much of an overall weight change. However, when you eat as soon as you roll out of bed and continue to do so throughout the day, then your body doesn't have time to burn its stored food energy, and you will gain weight. Similarly, to lose weight, you need to increase the amount of time your body has to burn fat stores as fuel. That's the principle behind losing weight with intermittent fasting. The science behind intermittent fasting. So far, there has been a lot of mention of the benefits intermittent fasting has on the body. For the most part, I touched on the science behind its advantages on blood sugar, insulin, weight loss, and so forth. There is, however, something I want to discuss in more detail: autophagy. This is such an exciting phenomenon and one you should be thrilled to learn about, considering that it has the ability to prolong your life significantly and keep you healthy as you enter your golden years. What is autophagy? The cells in your body can degrade any unnecessary or damaged components within themselves. This process is called autophagy, and it helps cells function optimally. Although autophagy may come across as self-destruction, it's actually rejuvenating as it cleans up harmful substances inside cells. The literal meaning of autophagy is self-eating or self-devouring. I know that sounds like something you don't want to happen in your body, but it is advantageous to your overall health. When you go through stress, your cells are robbed of vital nutrients and even oxygen. Autophagy can recycle damaged molecules into an alternative source of energy to help cells survive. In other instances, damaged cells won't be recycled but instead be programmed to self-destruct. Think of autophagy as a cellular process that balances the making and breaking of cellular components to serve the body best. It is the body's way of clearing out old, injured, or damaged cells to make room for newer, healthier cells. How does it work? Autophagy is a self-preservation mechanism. It helps remove dysfunctional cells and repair and clean to get your body back to functioning optimally. It's like hitting the reset button. Ultimately, autophagy forms part of a metabolic process that helps cells convert food into energy that is then used to grow and divide. Metabolism is the balancing force between these 2 opposing activities, anabolism and catabolism. Anabolism synthesizes molecules and builds cells, whereas catabolism breaks cells down. Autophagy is a catabolic process. Without going into much detail, a human cell is made up of a nucleus surrounded by a semifluid substance, cytoplasm, enclosed within a cellular membrane. The cytoplasm consists of cytosol, protein molecules, and tiny structures known as organelles, which play a vital role in the survival and functioning of the cell. When autophagy occurs, a semicircular membrane encloses a damaged part of the cell and forms an autophagosome, which then fuses with a lysosome, a type of organelle. The lysosome is filled with digestive enzymes that break down the autophagosome, and the remaining molecules are released back into the cytosol, where it is either recycled or destroyed. This process takes place constantly, but more when your body is under stress. This is where intermittent fasting comes into play. Autophagy and fasting. During a fast, cells do not have sufficient nutrients, which would induce autophagy in the body. Autophagy can break down damaged components into amino acids for cellular regeneration or fuel when the cells are starved. There's also the process of ketosis that can boost autophagy. Ketosis happens when all the glucose levels in your body are depleted, and your liver is forced to break down fat to use as a fuel source. You've probably heard of the ketogenic diet before, where the main goal is to get the body to rely on stored fat as energy. Although the ketogenic diet is all about cutting out carbohydrates to limit the body's access to glucose, it is possible to get a significant boost in your ketogenic fat-burning experience when you're following an intermittent fasting protocol. It works on the same principle. Burn glucose stores to depletion, forcing the body to burn stored fat as fuel. The main difference is that the ketogenic diet calls for prolonged use to see the benefits, which will not be possible if you consume moderate to high amounts of carbohydrates. You'll be in and out of ketosis when you follow intermittent fasting unless done in conjunction with a ketogenic lifestyle. That being said, fasting alone can kickstart autophagy. But how long do you need to fast for it to happen? The average human is always in some sort of autophagy. A good way to look at it is to imagine that your body is a parent of two kids. Anabolic processes, Annie, and catabolic processes, Katie. Both kids are always present because, your body is a good parent. When one of those kids goes to sleep, the parent, your body, now has time to focus more of its attention on the other little angel. This is essentially what happens with intermittent fasting and autophagy. Due to the reduction of incoming fuel, anabolic processes slow down, allowing the body to focus more on catabolic processes. As mentioned earlier, autophagy is a catabolic process. Generally speaking, significant autophagy takes around 18 hours to start. The rate of autophagy ramps up the longer you are in a fasted state, but does tend to plateau around the 24-hour mark. Benefits of autophagy. If there ever was a way to turn back the clock, then autophagy is it. Not only does autophagy remove toxic proteins linked with neurodegenerative diseases from cells, but it also provides the energy and building blocks to cells that need repair. In essence, it promotes the regeneration and health of cells. The bad news is that autophagy declines as we grow older, which means damaged cells are left to multiply and lead to various diseases, including cancer, a condition resulting from defective cells. Scientists are, in fact, looking at the possibility that autophagy can rid the body of cancerous cells completely. Another process called apoptosis, also known as programmed cell death, goes hand in hand with autophagy. The cells in our body only have a set number of divisions, and when they reach their limit, they die. I know it sounds somewhat macabre, but if you think about it, it's a necessary process for our bodies to maintain good health. A better way to explain it is to think of your car. You love to drive it around, and you have great memories of it. However, after a few years, you notice that the maintenance cost has gone up significantly, and it doesn't even have the standard features of current cars. At some point in this dilemma, the cost of keeping the car would outweigh the cost of getting a newer one. That is what happens in your body. Cells become old, die, and are replaced by newer ones. That being said, you don't always have to replace the entire car. Maybe you just need some new wheels. The same applies to your body. Instead of apoptosis, autophagy destroys only damaged parts of the cell to make way for healthier membranes and organelles. However, since this process slows down with age, you will have to do what you can to boost autophagy in your body, whether through intermittent fasting alone or a combination of fasting and a low-carb diet. How to activate autophagy. Depriving yourself of food is the best way to trigger autophagy. Since you're giving your body a break by not overloading it with external fuel, it has time to focus on its own healing and repair. It all comes down to glucose levels. When your body is running low on sugar, glycogen, it puts stress on cells, triggering the body's preservation mode and causing autophagy to kick in. Old, junky, and damaged proteins and cellular parts then get cleared out. But remember the human growth hormone I mentioned before and the fact that it increases during a fast? Well, this hormone can then get to work to produce healthy parts for the body. You have to get rid of the old to make space for the new, right? In other words, the process of destruction is essential in the process of creation, fundamentally giving your body a complete overhaul when you're fasting, getting rid of damaged cells to replace them with new ones. Want to boost your autophagy even more? Add exercise to your routine, and you'll activate this process in organs involved in metabolic regulation. For example, the liver, pancreas, and adipose tissue. The 6 stages of fasting. It's clear that intermittent fasting isn't only meant for weight loss. It's more than just a hack to get rid of your muffin top. Intermittent fasting is a lifestyle built on human evolution and informed by research on human metabolism. When you fast, you ask your body to run more efficiently than it is used to in modern times. Additionally, you're activating a self-protective mechanism where damaged parts of cells are removed to make way for new, healthy ones. We covered the basics of autophagy and apoptosis in the previous section, but I hope you don't mind if I get a tad technical for a little bit. In a well-fed state, the cells in your body are in growth mode. The insulin signals the mammalian target of rapamycin, or mTOR pathways, to tell your cells to grow and divide. In essence, mTOR tells your body not to bother with autophagy. The cells are happily fed and not worried about recycling any broken components. Furthermore, when cells have access to an abundance of nutrients, various genes, including those linked with cellular survival and propagation, are turned on. That's not a bad thing. But other genes are turned off in a well-fed state, primarily genes related to fat metabolism, damage repair, and stress resistance. That's all the genes we want to work a little harder when we're trying to lose weight and live a bit longer. Luckily, when you fast, the ketone bodies released activate these genes. Since our bodies come equipped with a well-preserved starvation program, we have the ability to put the brakes on mTOR. Thank goodness. Instead, the AMPK pathway is activated, signaling cells to protect themselves by going into autophagy and fat breakdown. And that's not half of what goes on in your body during a fast. But I am done with the biology lesson. You know that a lot happens in your body when you're not eating. But let's look at when exactly you can expect these things to take place. Stage 1. You're 12 hours into your fast and have now entered ketosis, which is where your body starts to use fat as fuel. Your liver turns fat into ketones as an alternative energy source when glucose stores have been depleted. It's also interesting to note that your brain can use up to 60% of your glucose stores even while you're sitting and doing nothing. When your brain adapts to using ketones as its main fuel source, you may experience mental clarity and a positive mood. This is because ketones cause less inflammation when broken down than glucose does. As an added bonus, ketones can also kickstart brain growth factor, BDNF. Stage 2. At the 18-hour mark, you're running a fat-burning machine. Your ketone production has increased significantly. The concentration of ketones in your bloodstream can now signal your body to reduce inflammation and repair damaged cells. Stage 3. You've been fasting for 24 hours, and autophagy is running at full steam. Old cellular components are being recycled, and proteins linked to Alzheimer's and other diseases are broken down. Stage 4. It's been 48 hours with no or very few calories, and your growth hormone level is up to 5 times higher than when you first started your fast. This is because the ketones produced during a fasted state promote growth hormone secretion. The hunger hormone ghrelin also triggers growth hormone secretion, so you're getting a double dose when those hunger pangs hit. Why get excited about growth hormone? Well, not only does it help preserve lean muscle mass, it makes it harder for your body to hold onto fat, particularly as we age. Good news for when you're over 50 and just looking at a donut makes you gain a pound. Growth hormone also plays an important role in heart health, wound healing, and boosts longevity in general. Stage 5. 54 hours have passed, and your insulin has dropped significantly. If you suffered from insulin resistance before your fast, you'd be happy to know that your body is becoming increasingly insulin sensitive. Stage 6. At 72 hours, your body is now hard at work breaking down old immune cells and growing new ones. You now know why intermittent fasting is good for you and better understand its inner workings. I think it's time we look at how you can start following this lifestyle and equip you with as much knowledge as possible to set you up for success. In Chapter 2, I'll share with you the different intermittent fasting protocols you can choose from, what you can and cannot eat during a fast, and any other information I think you need to get started. Let's get to it. Part 2. How to start intermittent fasting. We've established that intermittent fasting is not a diet. It doesn't restrict your calories or specify what foods you can and cannot eat. Intermittent fasting is a timed approach to eating, nothing more and nothing less. Yes, you'll lose weight if you manage your calories. Yes, you'll simplify your life considerably. Yes, you'll improve your overall health and prolong your life, but only if you do intermittent fasting correctly and for long enough. Personally, I suggest you never stop fasting. The benefits of intermittent fasting are just too great to go back to eating more regularly. Nevertheless, it's ultimately up to you. So, if you're ready to get going, here are some tips to get you started. 1. Identify your goal. As I just mentioned, intermittent fasting is not a diet, and it isn't limited to weight loss. However, if losing weight is your sole reason for attempting intermittent fasting, you'll have to consider other factors to be successful. For one, you will have to pay attention to your caloric intake. Intermittent fasting is not some magic pill that will make the pounds melt off while you keep eating in excess. So, calculate how many calories you need to eat to lose weight and not consume more during your eating window. For those of you who just gave the biggest whew, losing weight isn't my goal. I just want to activate autophagy. Don't think you can eat and how much you want either. The food you fuel your body with plays a role in the effectiveness of intermittent fasting. For example, if you eat sweets, cookies, and high-carb food during your eating window, it will take longer for your body to kickstart all the health benefits during your fast. Why? Because your body's glycogen stores will be filled to the brim. Where it would have taken 12 hours for your body to start producing ketones, it may take 16 hours now. If that's the case, and you're on a 16-8 protocol, more on that later, your body wouldn't have had time to deplete its glycogen stores at all before it is time to eat again. #not winning. 2. Select your method. When you choose your protocol, it is recommended that you stick with it for a month or longer to see how it works for you. That being said, you're only now starting and may discover in a day or two that the time slot when you're supposed to eat doesn't fit in with your daily schedule. Maybe you're not hungry when your eating window starts, or perhaps you're caught up in meetings at that time and can't eat when you should. If that is the case, shuffle things around until you're happy and then start your month-long trial. The potential regimes you can try when intermittent fasting include shorter fasts, 16-8. This is the most popular fasting protocol for beginners. What makes it super easy is that a good portion, around half, of your fast can happen during your sleep when timed correctly. For example, if you start eating at 11 a.m., in other words, skip breakfast, and stop eating at 7 p.m., you'll only be awake for between 4 to 6 hours of your fast, depending on when you go to bed and wake up. If you want to eat 3, 2, or only 1 meal during your eating window, it is up to you. 24. This is also known as the warrior diet. If you select this regimen, you'll fast for 20 hours and have an eating window of only 4 hours. Again, where your eating window falls depends entirely on your life and daily routine. Deciding if you want to eat 1 large drawn-out meal or 2 smaller meals during this time is also entirely up to you. See how flexible intermittent fasting is? Of course, this fasting protocol is considerably more challenging than 16-8. If I can give you some advice, start with 16-8, and once you can manage that comfortably, move on to 24 if you like. Longer fasts. OMAD, 1 meal a day. Or 24-hour fasts involve fasting for, you guessed it, 24 hours. For instance, if dinner is your favorite meal, you can enjoy dinner today and will have to hold out until dinner time the next day. Although it is possible to follow this routine daily, many people limit this to just a few times a week. The advantage of a 24-hour fast is that it is easy to incorporate into your everyday life. If you have a full-time job filled with meetings and deadlines, you've probably done a few 24-hour fasts because you didn't have a choice. Dinner also tends to be the meal we eat with our families daily, so it is easier to skip breakfast and lunch and wait until the end of the work or school day to have your meal. The only thing to remember is that certain medications and vitamins have to be taken with food, so you will have to take it with your 1 meal a day or look at other fasting options. 5-2 fast. Most studies on intermittent fasting feature this specific regime, eating regularly for 5 days and fasting for 2. However, You won't technically be fasting in the true sense on these 2 days since you're allowed to eat 500 calories each day. Furthermore, you can consume these calories at once or throughout the day. Alternate day fasting. Similar to 5-2 fast, but instead of fasting with 500 calories just twice a week, you'll do it every other day. 36-hour fasts. In this instance, you'd eat dinner on day 1, fast for the whole of day 2, and only eat breakfast on day 3. Before you select this regime, you have to be aware that there are risks involved with fasting for longer than 24 hours. Although the benefits of fasting accrue faster when you fast for longer, the risk of complications is higher. If you want to attempt these longer fasts, have a chat with your doctor first, especially if you are obese or suffer from type 2 diabetes. Your doctor may want to monitor your blood pressure and do blood work in the beginning. They will also tell you if a longer fast will interfere with any medication you're on. One thing is certain: if you feel unwell at any point, you should stop. 3. Figure out how many calories you need. Although intermittent fasting doesn't include any dietary restrictions, calories still count, especially when trying to lose weight. If weight loss is your goal, then you need to create a calorie deficit to be successful. The same goes for those trying to gain weight. Yes, it's possible to gain weight even while fasting. If that is your goal, you need to consume more energy than you use. Remember that what you eat and how much you eat affects how long it takes for the benefits of intermittent fasting to kick in. Healthy food is, you guessed it, healthier for you. Knowing how many calories you should eat for your body weight will make it easier for you to realize that a third donut for the day may not be the healthiest decision. You can use calorie calculators online or talk to your healthcare provider or dietitian and ask for their guidance. 4. Figure out a meal plan. Yes, intermittent fasting is there to simplify your life, but the ultimate goal is to live a healthy and longer life after 50. You're going to waste your time if you eat primarily junk food during your eating window. So, to set yourself up for success, come up with a meal plan. I recommend sitting on a Sunday morning and planning for the week ahead. Then, go shopping. Armed with a shopping list with only the ingredients recorded for the meals you're going to eat in the coming week, you'll be less tempted to load unhealthy food into your basket. You'll also save money if you stick to buying only what is on the shopping list. Your meal plan doesn't have to be restrictive. Just keep your calorie allowance in mind and aim for wholesome, nutritious foods. Part 3. Watch out for the gotchas. In this section, we're going to go through some of the common and not so common pitfalls that you'll run into during your intermittent journey. So grab a pen and pad and let's dig in. Intermittent fasting Q&A. Won't intermittent fasting put me into starvation mode? There are a lot, and I mean a lot, of, quote, professionals on both sides of the argument currently. Some scientists say it is a reality, while others proclaim you have to go without food for weeks for it to be triggered. Starvation mode is when your body slows the burning of calories because of the lack of available fuel sources, carbs or fats. It's a protective measure to keep you alive for as long as possible in times when food is scarce. When done properly, intermittent fasting sits comfortably in the middle of 3 square meals a day and starvation. It's the sweet spot, baby. Whatever the case may be, the chance of you hitting starvation mode is unlikely. In fact, intermittent fasting may increase your basal metabolic rate in the initial stages and could potentially even improve your body's overall composition. Can I exercise when fasted? You sure can. You can do all the activities you normally enjoy while fasting. What's more, when you exercise while fasting, your body will burn up stored glucose even faster. And if you've already depleted your glucose stores, getting your heart rate up will start the fat-burning process. I have to mention that drinking fluid and replenishing your electrolytes before and after exercising is vital to avoid cramps and keep your body running optimally. Also, if you plan on doing cardio for an extended period, eating beforehand may increase your performance. What side effects can I expect? Hunger. As you can imagine, this is the most common side effect. One way to beat it is to follow a low-carb, higher-fat diet when you eat. Fat makes you feel satiated for longer, so those unpleasant hunger pangs won't affect you as much. Furthermore, foods that are high in carbs digest faster, which means you'll feel hungry sooner. Constipation. If you eat less, there will be less to come out. This is normal and won't require any treatment unless it is causing abdominal discomfort. Proper hydration and electrolyte replenishing, along with magnesium supplementation, is a good way to get things moving if you're not keen on drinking laxatives. Headaches. You're most likely to experience headaches after the first couple of fasts. It has to do with a mineral imbalance in your body, particularly sodium and potassium. To combat future headaches, add some extra salt to your diet by drinking zero-sugar sports drinks, smart water, or just adding an extra sprinkle of table salt, pink Himalayan salt for you fancies out there. For the potassium piece, leafy greens such as spinach and chard are great. Other foods like nuts, think almonds, pistachios, and even peanuts, avocado, and salmon are good too. Who's thinking salmon tacos with guac? This will also help prevent muscle cramps, another common side effect of fasting. Most of the side effects you may experience are entirely manageable and won't require you to stop your fast. That being said, if you feel excessively dizzy, extremely weak, or have other severe symptoms, break your fast immediately. Just keep in mind when you break your fast, especially after feeling ill, you should prioritize fluid and salt. Can my blood sugar go up while fasting? Yes, it is usually associated with those living with diabetes. It is known as the dawn phenomenon, where your blood sugar spikes upon waking. If this is persistent, please see a medical professional. How can I manage my hunger? Hunger comes and goes like a wave. Still, I realize that many people worry that their hunger will build and build until it is intolerable. You'll be happy to learn that this doesn't usually happen. Instead, it goes away if you ignore it or drink a cup of tea or coffee. If you, however, attempt an extended fast, the second day may be more challenging hunger-wise. If you can push through, it usually recedes to such a degree that many people describe not feeling hungry at all by day 3 or 4. It makes sense considering that your body by this time will use fat as fuel, so in essence, it will be eating without a thing having to pass your lips. Won't intermittent fasting burn all my muscle? This depends on your lean body mass. If you are super skinny with little or no fat, your body may turn to excess amino acids, the building blocks of protein, as a source of energy. This process is called gluconeogenesis and only happens if it absolutely has no other option. Of course, I'm not saying skinny people shouldn't fast or they'll lose all their muscle mass. You just have to do things a little differently. For example, choose shorter fasting regimes and make sure you follow a higher fat, higher protein diet when you do eat. Can I drink fluids during my fast? Water, coffee, tea, and any other non-caloric liquids are perfectly fine. In fact, coffee may be particularly useful as it can blunt your hunger. Is it true that it's unhealthy to skip breakfast? Not at all. As long as you eat healthy food when it is time to eat, there is nothing wrong with skipping any meal of the day. I've noticed that it's usually the biggest breakfast advocates who live the most unhealthy lifestyles. Can I take my supplements while fasting? Yes, but not all of them. Some supplements may break your fast because they need to be taken with food to work. Fat-soluble vitamins K, A, and D are good examples. Later in this chapter, we'll look at what you can and cannot eat or drink during your fast. Can women fast when pregnant or while breastfeeding? The possible nutrient deficiency outweighs any potential benefit intermittent fasting may have for pregnant or nursing women. Their bodies need to feed them and their babies. It's best not to limit nutrients at this time. Can I do intermittent fasting while I'm trying to conceive? Considering the impact fasting has on a woman's hormones, I suggest you don't fast while you're trying to conceive to improve your chances of getting pregnant. Can I drink bone broth during my fast? The answer is yes and no. Although bone broth contains much needed minerals and vitamins and can keep hunger pangs at bay, it does have calories that will require your body's attention, thus breaking your fast. If you want a clean fast, stick to water, tea, coffee, or apple cider vinegar diluted in water. I do recommend you drink a cup of bone broth during your eating window since it is so nutritious. Can I use xylitol or artificial sweeteners in a fasting state? No. While in a fasted state, it's important to abstain from caloric intake of any kind. This may take some practice to get used to. While some artificial sweeteners can be an excellent addition to a healthy lifestyle, they still have a caloric component we want to avoid during our fast. Focus on water, teas, and black coffee. Okay, so no artificial sweeteners during my fast. What about during my eating period? It depends. Some artificial sweeteners can actually raise blood sugar, causing an unwanted insulin response. Xylitol has a negligible effect on blood sugar when consumed in normal servings, but can cause GI, gastrointestinal, issues when consumed in excess. On the other hand, maltitol should definitely be avoided, as it has been shown to raise blood sugar, creating a subsequent insulin response. But fret not. There are a lot of good artificial sweeteners out there, such as stevia, erythritol, and allulose, just to name a few. Pro tip: stevia has a bitter aftertaste, while erythritol is subtle on the front end and sweet and cool on the back. Mix the two for a well-balanced, sugar-free sweetener. The company Splenda does this with their product, Splenda Naturals. Always check the ingredients to make sure they have not changed the recipe. Women and intermittent fasting. I want to take a moment to speak to our women readers. While most of the biological functions in men and women overlap, key differences affect how our bodies respond to the stress of fasting. Female bodies are more complicated than those of their male counterparts due to the hormones you deal with. In general, it's harder for women to lose weight, but when you're over 50, the struggle becomes even more intense. It is more difficult as you age because you tend to lose lean muscle mass, and the less of that you have, the slower your metabolism is. This results in stubborn body fat that just won't budge. This brings me to intermittent fasting. Can it help older women shed those unwanted pounds? And more importantly, is it healthy? Let's look at science. In 2016, researchers scoured through various studies on women fasting, health, and aging and published their findings in the Journal of Midlife Health. What they found was very positive, ranging from the effect of fasting on women's health, ability to lose weight, to the impact on their physical and mental health. Let's look at some of the results. Intermittent fasting helps women over 50 lose weight. Previously, I mentioned that belly fat is a health concern for men and women. The study mentioned above found that intermittent fasting can successfully help women lose belly fat, even when they're over 50. This is especially good news as older women are at risk of metabolic syndrome, an umbrella term for various health issues that affect postmenopausal women. Cardiovascular disease and diabetes are only two of the diseases that you reduce your risk of getting if you lose visceral belly fat. Intermittent fasting improves joint health, muscle health, and reduces inflammation. The research also found that fasting decreased lower back pain and arthritic symptoms. It comes down to the hormones produced during a fast, which influence calcium, phosphate, and other bone minerals, increasing your bone and joint health. Fasting reduces cancer risk in older women. We've covered why fasting can combat cancer in depth in this book, but to refresh your memory, autophagy is key in these findings. The study found that fasting not only prevents some pathways that lead to cancer from forming, but also slows the growth of tumors that have already started growing. Intermittent fasting can help with depression in women. The study found that no matter the type of fasting technique women choose, there was a significant improvement in their mood, self-esteem, and a notable decrease in their anxiety levels. Okay, but if fasting is so good for women, why do some health professionals warn against it? The not-so-upside of intermittent fasting for women. Although the review of scientific literature cited above didn't say much about the negative aspects of fasting for women over 50, there is evidence that intermittent fasting doesn't hold as many benefits for some women as it does for men. For one, blood sugar control, which is one of the main benefits of intermittent fasting, may worsen in women after fasting for 3 weeks. This hasn't been noted to happen in men at all. Earlier in this book, we established that intermittent fasting puts stress on the body, and where that is a good thing to a degree, women may experience more negative effects due to the raised cortisol, stress hormone, levels in their bodies. Too much of this hormone can cause blood sugar dysregulation, insulin resistance, lean muscle loss, disruption in thyroid function, etc. By far, the most reported negative factor intermittent fasting has on women is interference with their menstrual cycles. Anecdotal evidence suggests that women experienced changes in their cycle after starting intermittent fasting. In some cases, they stopped getting their periods entirely. This happens because female bodies are sensitive to changes in caloric intake. Fasting too long or too often can affect the hypothalamus in the brain, interfering with the secretion of gonadotropin-releasing hormone. GnRH, which is responsible for releasing two reproductive hormones, luteinizing hormone, LH, and follicle-stimulating hormone, FSH. Irregular periods, infertility, and other negative health effects arise when these hormones don't reach the ovaries. If women who intermittently fast don't pay attention to eating enough, they could experience fertility issues. Animal studies, chiefly in rats, found that alternate day fasting for between 3 and 6 months caused a reduction in ovary size as well as irregular cycles. Of course, I know that not many women over 50 want children, if they can still conceive at all, but hormones play an important role in other bodily functions, so it's worth noting. Other side effects may affect women more than men, no matter how they adapt their fast to work with their bodies. These include mood swings, lack of concentration, headaches, reduced energy, and bad breath. Intermittent fasting can also increase a person's obsession with food, leading to overeating or excessive restrictive behavior, followed by binge eating. This is especially unfavorable for women who have an eating disorder or even those who are chronic dieters. Women are more finely tuned to caloric deficits, which means the hunger hormone ghrelin rises more quickly after meals, contributing to disordered eating. For this reason, it's best to consult with your doctor before you attempt intermittent fasting. Medical consultation is especially important if you're a woman and you is or have suffered from an eating disorder, have diabetes or experience low blood sugar levels regularly, are malnourished, underweight, or have nutritional deficiencies, are trying to conceive, are pregnant or breastfeeding, have a history of missing your period, amenorrhea. All things considered, intermittent fasting is generally safe for women, but some do experience negative effects. If you're one of these women, or are concerned that you may be, please consult with your doctor. Autophagy in women. Before moving on to the next section, we must touch on autophagy in women. The research done on intermittent fasting and autophagy is primarily male-oriented, with very little information on intermittent fasting's impact on the metabolic process for women. During a unisex study, researchers found that male neurons responded positively to starvation by triggering autophagy. Female neurons, on the other hand, resisted this process. This is not necessarily bad, as some diseases hijack the autophagy process to facilitate their growth, and women tend to be less susceptible to these diseases. Just be smart about it. Modify your approach to intermittent fasting somewhat. Shorter fasts for fewer days at a time seem to be the most well-suited to women. Instead of attempting to go without food for as long as you can, play around with short fasts until you find one that gives you the best results. Attempting to power through a 24-hour fast is going to leave you with foggy thinking, splitting headaches, and overpowering hunger, while wreaking havoc on your hormone levels and metabolic processes. Pro tip: making healthy food choices during your feeding window drastically affects your ability to enter into serious autophagy. Sticking to a higher healthy fat, lower carb eating lifestyle can speed up your timeline to autophagy. How to break a fast. I have two goals in this section. One is to educate you on what foods and drinks can break your fast unwittingly. Two is to teach you how to safely break your fast, especially if you are attempting to go without food for an extended period. Before we move to what you shouldn't eat or drink during a fast, let's look at what is safe to consume. Since fasting aims to refrain from eating, the answer to what you're allowed to eat is pretty straightforward: nothing. However, there are some beverages, and even food, you can consume that won't negate the benefits of fasting. Of course, not everyone agrees. The purists will say that only water is allowed, while some experts believe keeping your carbohydrate intake below 20 grams during a fast is key to maintaining ketosis. In other words, you can eat as long as you don't overdo it on the carb front. Here is a list of foods and beverages you can consume during a fast, but read carefully. Some of them come with caveats. Water. Probably the one drink everyone agrees is safe during a fast, since it contains no calories. It won't break your fast and will help keep you hydrated throughout the day. You can drink plain or carbonated water and even add a pinch of salt to it to combat cramps. Coffee and tea. When consumed without sugar, milk, cream, or anything else that may contain calories, then it is completely safe to drink while you're fasting. That being said, some people do add a small amount of milk or cream to help curb hunger. Apple cider vinegar. 1 to 2 teaspoons of apple cider vinegar mixed into water is safe to drink. Not only will it help keep you hydrated, but it can also curb any cravings during your fast. Healthy fats. Have you ever heard of bulletproof coffee? It's a mix of some type of fat, either MCT oil, coconut oil, butter, or ghee and coffee. People who follow the ketogenic diet often replace a meal with this drink as it contains enough calories to keep them going and will keep them satiated for a long time due to the high fat content. Although consuming healthy fats won't kick you out of ketosis, it will break your fast. You'll have to figure out if ketosis is your main aim or if you want the other added benefits of fasting. Bone broth. Although bone broth is a super rich source of nutrients, it contains calories, which means it will break your fast. If you do find that you struggle with cramps during a fast, maybe consider drinking a cup of bone broth to replenish your electrolytes. That is if you can't wait until your eating window. What about supplements? You may decide to take supplements during your fast to ensure that you don't become deficient in nutrients. Firstly, it is unlikely to happen if you stick to intermittent fasts. However, if you fast daily and don't pay particular attention to eating wholesome and nutritious foods, nutrient deficiency can quickly become a reality. If you plan on taking supplements during your fast, it is important to know which supplements will break your fast. Furthermore, keep in mind that fat-soluble vitamins need to be taken with food to be absorbed, so don't waste your money by taking it on an empty stomach. Branched-chain amino acids, BCAAs. Research has shown that BCAAs trigger insulin production, which, as we know, works against autophagy, so not during a fasting period. Protein powder. Since protein powder contains calories, it will trigger an insulin response, which will tell your body that it is getting fuel, and it may stop the beneficial processes associated with fasting. With current technology, zero-carb protein powders have hit major stores and are a viable option to retain the benefits of fasting while getting some protein in. Multivitamins. Look for brands that don't contain sugar or added fillers. They usually have few to no calories. Fish or algae oil. These supplements, when taken as recommended, contain very few calories and no digestible carbs. Individual micronutrients. Vitamin B and potassium, for example, won't break your fast. Vitamin D, A, E, and K won't either, but they are fat-soluble vitamins and should be taken with food to be effective at all. Creatine. This is a calorie-free supplement and won't affect your body's insulin response at all. Pure collagen. Although there is a chance that collagen can impair autophagy slightly, it won't have a significant effect on ketosis or fat burning. Probiotics and prebiotics. These usually contain no calories or digestible carbs, but I recommend you check the packaging in any case. Okay, time to break your fast. The first tip I can give you is to do it gently. You want to ease out of the fast. I always start by eating small portions of foods that won't overwhelm my digestive system and are easily digested. Good examples include eggs, avocado, soft vegetables. Eating food high in fat or fiber may lead to bloating and discomfort since they're not easily digested. Even healthy foods like nuts, seeds, and high-fiber products will be an issue when you start eating. Worse yet are foods that are high in sugar and processed. Breaking your fast with a greasy cheeseburger, soda, and a slice of cake will shock your system, and afterward, you won't feel very good. Nutrient-dense foods that are easy to digest should be your go-to. Here are some examples of what you can eat to break your fast. Smoothies. This is a great way to get nutrients into your body without shocking your body. Fruits and veggies that have been blended contain less fiber than when eaten whole. Dried fruits. Dates are so high in nutrients that it forms a big part of breakfasts in Saudi Arabia. Apricots and raisins are also highly concentrated sources of vitamins and minerals. Soups. Since the ingredients in soups are usually soft and easily digestible, you're more than welcome to drink a cup or two to break your fast. Just avoid using a lot of heavy cream and large amounts of high-fiber vegetables. Vegetables. Soft and thoroughly cooked vegetables won't negatively affect your body when you break your fast. Fermented foods. Unsweetened yogurt or kefir will be good for your gut when you start eating after a fast. Pickles, olives, and sauerkraut, especially sauerkraut, are good too. Healthy fats. Avocado, eggs, and other sources of healthy fats are excellent options to break your fast with. When your first meal of the day is made up of healthy, more tolerable food, you'll be able to replenish important nutrients and electrolytes better than when you opt to visit the nearest drive-thru to break your fast. Once your body has had time to get used to digesting food again, you can add in more dense types of food like grains, beans, fiber-rich vegetables, nuts, seeds, poultry, fish, and meat. Probably the most important thing when it comes to breaking your fast is to be mindful not to overeat, something that is very easy to do when you haven't had anything to eat for a long time. You know that intermittent fasting, in its most basic form, doesn't dictate what you can and cannot eat. However, throughout this book, I emphasized how healthier options will lead to better results. When you overeat or gorge yourself, especially on junk food, you'll cancel out much, if not all, of the benefits of intermittent fasting. I'm not saying you should ban junk food from your home. All I'm suggesting is that you focus on minimally processed, whole foods for most of the time and indulge only once in a while. You'll get the most out of intermittent fasting if you do it this way. Okay, that covers shorter fasts. But refeeding is a whole different ballgame if you are attempting longer fasts. What you eat as your first meal after a long fast will take some planning and care. Our bodies aren't used to going without food for too long. If you've been eating several meals a day, it's going to take some time for your body to adjust to going without food. When you fast, your body doesn't have to spend so much metabolic energy constantly producing digestive enzymes. Due to this reduction in digestive enzyme production, your body may go through some gastrointestinal discomfort when you start eating again. In other words, it will have to produce more digestive enzymes than it's been doing lately, and that can cause some distress when forced to do so too quickly. For example, you may experience diarrhea, the passing of undigested food, bloating, excessive gas and accompanying pain, nausea, and vomiting. Since your body stopped producing digestive enzymes during the fast, there aren't any juices available to break down the food, meaning the food you eat will sit in your stomach for longer and it will take a few hours more for your body to start digesting the food. It's during this time when you may experience some discomfort. Choosing the best foods to eat is paramount to minimize these side effects. The same foods you'd eat to break a short-term fast will be fine, apart from a few that need to move to the bad list when it comes to long-term fasting. Grits and pancakes, for example. Other foods I found to be particularly problematic include nuts and seeds and their butters, cruciferous vegetables, even when cooked, alcohol, red meat in some cases. Not to say that you won't be able to eat these foods at all during your eating window. You just shouldn't eat them first thing after breaking your fast. Usually after 6 hours, your body will be more than capable of digesting the foods on the no list without any difficulty. How you break your fast can also lessen the amount of stress on your body. Try these tips. 1. Stay hydrated during your fast. 2. Eat a cup of tomato and cucumber salad with a tablespoon of extra virgin olive oil before you eat anything else. 3. Stay away from red meats and stick to poultry or fish to be safe. Don't overdo the protein either. Aim for the size and thickness of your palm. Some good news, you can eat the fat. 4. The rest of your meal can consist of non-starchy vegetables cooked in avocado, coconut oil, or other natural fats. 5. If you're still hungry, end your first meal with an avocado. If you break your long-term fast this way, you shouldn't experience any problems. If you do, adding something like a tablespoon of psyllium husk to a cup of water has been shown to help. You can also drink the psyllium in water at the beginning of your eating window and see how that works for you. Refeeding syndrome. It is vital that you learn about refeeding syndrome and prevent it since it is a serious and potentially fatal condition. It usually occurs after a period of prolonged fasting, malnourishment, famine, extreme dieting, starvation. Now, I'm not here to scare you. I just want you to know what could happen if you attempt a long-term fast and don't pay attention to how you break your fast. Refeeding syndrome happens when there is a sudden shift in the electrolytes in your body. I mentioned electrolytes previously in this book and explained how fasting could easily deplete them, which leads to cramps and other negative side effects. This is because fasting changes how your body metabolizes nutrients. Think back to how insulin breaks down glucose, and when there's no glucose for it to break down, insulin production slows down. Phosphate plays an important role in converting glucose to energy when it comes to electrolytes. You can imagine how the switch from using glucose to ketones as fuel will affect your phosphate levels. Then, upon reintroducing food, your body shifts back from fat metabolism to glucose metabolism, unless you're following a ketogenic diet and are in ketosis. When this happens, phosphate is in short supply to convert the glucose to energy, leading to hypophosphatemia, a common feature in refeeding syndrome. Symptoms of refeeding syndrome can include weakness, fatigue, confusion, high blood pressure, difficulty breathing, heart arrhythmias, heart failure, seizures, coma, death. Other metabolic changes that can occur at this time include irregular sodium and fluid levels, thiamine deficiency, changes in glucose, fat, and protein metabolism, hypomagnesemia, low magnesium, and hypokalemia, low potassium. These symptoms usually appear around 4 days after starting the refeeding process and can take a sudden turn for the worse. Although some people are more at risk of refeeding syndrome than others, there's no way to know who will get it and who won't. This is why prevention is critical. You may be higher at risk if you have a body mass index that is under 16. You lost more than 15% of your body weight in the past 3 to 6 months. You've been fasting for 10 or more consecutive days. In this case, eating well below the calories your body needs to function will count as fasting. If one or more of these apply to you, you should rethink prolonged fasting and seek immediate medical care if you experience any of the symptoms mentioned. Other factors that may increase your risk of developing refeeding syndrome include anorexia nervosa, alcoholism, cancer, uncontrolled diabetes, recent surgeries, history of using diuretics or antacids. This is a serious condition, and complications that may arise would require immediate intervention. Consequently, hospitalization may be necessary where you can be placed under medical supervision. Usually, a team experienced in gastroenterology and dietetics will oversee your treatment. What's more, there's still much research needed to determine the best way to treat this syndrome. As it stands, treatment usually consists of replacing electrolytes and ensuring that refeeding happens at a slow and steady pace to prevent further complications. Usually, the refeeding will be done at 20 calories per kilogram of body weight or limit a person's calories to 1,000 per day for the first while. All the while, they will monitor electrolyte levels with frequent blood tests, and intravenous infusions will be used to replace them if necessary. Sodium replacement will also be carefully monitored, and fluids will be reintroduced at a slower rate. Although this treatment is not suitable for individuals with conditions such as hypocalcemia, hypercalcemia, or impaired kidney function. As you can see, refeeding syndrome is something to be careful of. Prevention is critical. However, underlying health conditions that increase the risk aren't always apparent. The best way to avoid refeeding syndrome is to pay attention to what you eat when you break a prolonged fast and at what pace your refeeding happens. It's for this reason that I recommend you get your doctor on board when you plan on fasting for longer than 36 hours. They will be able to help prevent complications by identifying if you're at risk, tailoring refeeding programs according to your body, monitoring your refeeding. Again, this section is not included to frighten you. It's there so you know the worst that could go wrong should you attempt extended fasting periods. Conclusion. Getting old isn't for the faint of heart. Our bodies have a shelf life, and as the clock ticks by, we start to experience aches and pains almost daily. If we add obesity to the mix, our health can go downhill even faster. Luckily, it doesn't have to be all doom and gloom. There's no reason to feel over the hill when you hit 50. In fact, there is a way for you to feel like you're 30 and on top of the world again. Intermittent fasting, although one of the latest crazes on the dieting scene, has been practiced for years and years. Our ancestors had no choice but to fast, seeing as they didn't have access to grocery stores and 24/7 drive-thrus. Today, a pizza is one press of a button away, but there's a price to pay for this level of convenience. Obesity levels have climbed significantly worldwide since food became big business, not to mention the increase in preventable diseases like heart disease and type 2 diabetes. You know better now. After reading this book, it should be clear that breakfast is not the most important meal of the day, and that eating 6 times a day is not as healthy as some in the health and fitness industry so excitedly broadcast. How can it be when the constant insulin spikes after eating wreak havoc on your body? Also, if your body has to break down food so frequently and manage all the hormonal processes that go with it, when will it have time to heal itself? The answer is none. Your body will have no time to heal and rebuild if you are in a constant state of consumption. After 50, you have a slower metabolism, so it is important to give your body the time it needs to heal itself properly. And if you're a woman, the struggle is just so much harder. You already start at a disadvantage with less muscle mass than men, and then there's the dreaded H word that follows you around, hormones. I realize less scientific research supports the benefits of intermittent fasting on women, but I don't want you to disregard the anecdotal evidence. Intermittent fasting works, and not just for men. I think now is a great time to recap the advantages of giving your body a break from food. There's a drop in insulin in your body, lowering your risk of getting type 2 diabetes. Intermittent fasting can help your body reverse it if you already have this disease. Human growth hormone gets a boost. Autophagy kicks in, and your body eats any old and damaged cells. This is a great way to combat cancer. You'll experience less inflammation and oxidative stress. Your heart will be healthier. Your brain will get a boost and added protection against neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's. You'll live longer. Blood pressure decreases, and with it, your risk of stroke, heart disease, and kidney disease also drop. Bad cholesterol gets busted when you practice intermittent fasting. You'll lose weight, especially the dangerous visceral kind. Personally, I found that intermittent fasting changed my relationship with food. Where I would run to the fridge at the first hunger pang in the past, I now know it is okay to feel hungry. I hope you also went through such a mind shift after reading this book. Maybe you have to attempt intermittent fasting first and experience the benefits before you give up breakfast or another meal forever. Whatever the case, I am positive that it won't take long for you to be convinced that intermittent fasting is the closest thing to the fountain of youth we have. I've been eating this way for 12 years. I can honestly say that I feel healthier and stronger than I did when I first started. That's remarkable considering that I really put my body through the ringer, and I'm not a spring chicken anymore. Now it is time for you to jump on the intermittent fasting bandwagon and add years to your life. You have all the knowledge you need to make a success of your intermittent fasting journey. One last motivation. Don't give up after your first try. If you find that your eating window falls at the wrong time of day, switch things up. Similarly, if your fasting window is too short or long, change it. Intermittent fasting isn't supposed to make your life hell. It is an easy and convenient way to lose weight and get healthy. Make it work for you. To lend a further hand, here are some of my top tips for intermittent fasting. Drink enough water. Keep your mind occupied. Drink coffee or tea when you're hungry. Remember, no milk or sugar. Hunger comes in waves. Ride them out. Commit yourself to intermittent fasting for 1 month. Follow a low-carb or high-fat diet in conjunction with intermittent fasting to reduce hunger and kickstart the fasting benefits. Don't binge after breaking your fast. Finally, if this book helped you, please give it a favorable review and share it with your friends and family members. Give them the key to a long and healthy life so that you can be together for as long as possible.